I finally got to play Legends of Equestria and my first impressions are mixed, but I'll get onto that in a minute. I had a lot of fun during the recent open server weekend, although I hope the people making the game are open to some creative criticism. The first thing I will say before people get the wrong impression is I did enjoy Legends of Equestria. It's a good game. You start the game in the character creator where you can choose between one of the three pony races: Pegasus, Unicorn and Earth Pony. So you of course can't play as an alicorn or unfortunately a zebra, so I created an Earth Pony character that I think is kinda cute. Although I wish there was more mane and tail options, but you can easily create a character to your liking. And then when I got into the game, the first thing I noticed was how well the character controlled. The only MMO I've played extensively is Star Trek Online, where in battle you need to have your hands in 3 places at once to control the ship, so more often than you'd like you end up running into a Borg cube or 2. But in LoE, the camera follows the character's movements, meaning you needed the directional and attack buttons. The mouse was only really needed for interacting with NPCs, which is good because the areas are huge and there are several of them, although I didn't have time to visit all of them unfortunately. That said, there was no frame rate drops or texture pop-in. Then again, my computer exceeds the game's minimum system requirements. Some negatives. Now, I did hear that they suffered a DDoS attack before I was able to get on, so bear that in mind because I was having a lot of connection problems throughout the open server weekend, which may have caused some of the other problems I had, like some of the quests seemed broken. Like there was one where you had to find a miner's pickaxe, but when I found it he wouldn't take it, so I kept restarting it and running around the mine until my inventory was full of pickaxes trying to make it work. Another thing that seemed broken was the journal, where you have your quests, a map, friends lists, notes, and all the pages were blank, so I don't know if it was just broken or unfinished. Also, everywhere was surrounded by invisible walls, but really that's just a nitpick. The only problem the game has is being a work in progress. One thing I will say to the players is, if you're going to make a Pinkie Pie clone, don't go all caps in the chat worrying about other people making Pinkie Pie clones. I must have seen clones of all the main 6, the princesses, the CMC, several background ponies, also a Brony Curious clone. Now I don't mind people making clones of canon characters. After 3 years of playing Star Trek Online, I'm used to seeing Picard clones. Also Yoda. But if you are going to make a clone of a canon character, expect others to have the same idea. Like in the last day, I wish I took a screenshot of this, but there was several Twilight Sparkle clones in Ponytail. It was like too many Pinkie Pies, only with Twilights. Speaking of the chat, there was a pop-up asking people not to swear in chat, so if you're a parent worrying about the community in MMOs, this is one where the chat is monitored for inappropriate language. Although I don't know what criteria the pop-up appears, because the only time I saw it was when I was asking for help when I fell off Cloudopolis and landed on a ledge that I couldn't get back up from. I do have to commend the people making this fan-created, free-to-play MMO. There's so much content and polish, even though the game is still in the beta stage. I'd go so far as to say this game puts a lot of recent AAA titles to shame, not to name names, but I think anyone who has an 8th gen console knows what I'm talking about. The only thing I'd say this game needs, although I don't know if it's something they plan to put in, but a story. Or at very least a multiple quest line, just something to encourage grouping. But if they did that and sorted out the connectivity issues, they could make this game at least 20% cooler.